My name is Lucy Sugart, and I'm 26. I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman who sits in her car outside her own house, hands locked around the steering wheel, like it's the only thing keeping her together. The engine is off, the porch light is on, and through the walls of the house that was supposed to be my sanctuary, bass-heavy music pulses like a heartbeat that doesn't belong to me. I'm shaking with anger, sharp, focused, almost clean. And the part that scares me most is this. A small voice in my head keeps whispering that I should have seen this coming. Because this isn't really about a party. It's about what people think they're entitled to take from you when you've spent your whole life being told to keep the peace. My grandmother died in September after a long, exhausting battle with cancer. Everyone offered the usual condolences, the soft phrases people use when they don't know what to say. She's in a better place. She's not suffering anymore. What no one seemed to understand was that she was the only person who had ever made me feel safe. Not tolerated, not accommodated, safe. My parents divorced when I was 7. My mom moved across the country for a job and slowly faded into a voice that called twice a year, usually distracted, always rushed. I learned early that some people can love you and still leave you behind. My dad stayed, but emotionally he checked out years ago. When I was 12, he remarried Sandra, and Sandra brought her daughter Megan into our lives. Megan is 22 now, but she's always carried herself like the world owes her something. If I had something nice, she wanted it. If I succeeded, she had to outshine it, louder, bigger, more visible. And my dad? My dad became a master at avoidance. "Keep the peace, sweetheart," he'd say whenever Megan crossed a line, when she took my things without asking. Keep the peace. When she lied and Sandra cried about how sensitive Megan was. Keep the peace. When I was hurt and angry and exhausted. Keep the peace. It didn't matter what it cost me, as long as my dad didn't have to confront his new family. So I stopped trying to find fairness at home. I found it at my grandmother's house. Her place was a 3-bedroom craftsman she'd owned for 40 years. Paid off, solid, warm. It smelled like tea and old books and lemon polish. When I showed up overwhelmed or quietly crying, she never told me to be smaller. She'd just open her arms and say, "Come here, baby." When her will was read, no one looked at me. Not until the lawyer calmly said that the house was left to Lucy Sugart. Every head turned. The silence felt accusatory, like I'd stolen something instead of being given it. Probate cleared at the beginning of October. I moved in with a few boxes, a grieving heart, and a fragile feeling I was almost afraid to name. Mine. The house isn't huge, about 1,800 square feet, but it's the only thing in my life that has ever been mine without conditions. No sharing, no apologizing, no being reminded I should be grateful for scraps. I work as a laboratory technician at a hospital. The hours are brutal, especially overnight shifts. The work is demanding and unforgiving, but I like it. Science doesn't guilt trip you. Evidence doesn't lie. When you solve a problem, it stays solved. Around that time, I started dating Ethan, my boyfriend. He's steady in a way I'm not used to, the kind of man who notices when my voice tightens and doesn't push for answers. He has an ex-girlfriend, Lila, who still lingers at the edges of his life, liking old photos, sending accidental texts. Ethan keeps boundaries, but it reminds me how easily old patterns try to sneak back in. I already had enough of that with Megan. She'd been unemployed for 8 months, drifting between short-term jobs and resentment. Since I moved into the house, her comments had sharpened. Little remarks about how lucky I was, how unfair it was that Grandma hadn't left her anything. Conveniently forgetting she'd met my grandmother maybe 5 times and had been rude every single time. A week before New Year's, Megan texted me, "Hey, can I have a few friends over at your place for New Year's? You'll be at work anyway." Then, like 5 people max, just watching the ball drop, we'll be gone by 1. I stared at my phone longer than I should have. I should have said no, but my dad had been pressing me since I moved in. "Include Megan more," he'd say. "She's your sister now." Not stepsister, sister. As if a word could erase years of being second choice. So I said yes, against my instincts, but I laid out strict conditions like a contract. No more than 10 people, no bedrooms, no smoking inside. Everyone gone by 1:30 a.m. Clean up before leaving. Megan replied immediately, "Of course, totally, you're the best, Lucy." My stomach tightened, but I ignored it. My shift on December 31st started at 7 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. I locked my bedroom door before leaving. Not paranoia, just experience. At 11:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was Dorothy, my neighbor, 82 years old, lived next door for 30 years, close friends with my grandmother. She's the kind of woman who still bakes cookies for no reason and calls everyone sweetheart. Her voice was gentle but concerned. "Sweetheart, I hate to bother you at work," she said, "but there are cars parked all up and down the street. Must be 50 people in your grandmother's house. The music is so loud I can hear it through my walls." My heart dropped straight into my stomach. 50. I told her I'd handle it and hung up with hands that suddenly felt numb. I called Megan. No answer. Again and again. I texted, "Call me now." Nothing. I went to my supervisor, explained I had an emergency at home. One look at my face, and she let me leave. The drive home felt endless. When I turned onto my street at 12:15 a.m., my chest tightened. Cars everywhere, on the lawn, blocking driveways, one half parked in Dorothy's yard. The house glowed like a concert venue. Bass rattled the windows. People crowded my porch, my driveway, laughing like they owned the place. Cheap LED lights were strung across my grandmother's rose bushes. I could already see broken branches. I had to park 3 houses down. As I walked up, a group of guys I'd never seen before stood smoking on the sidewalk. One of them grinned at me. "You here for the party?" "I live here," I said, jaw clenched. "Oh, sick," he laughed. "Megan's sister. She said you were cool with this." I wasn't cool. The front door was wide open. Inside, my grandmother's house was unrecognizable, furniture shoved aside, red cups everywhere, smoke hanging in the air. And in the kitchen, Megan was dancing on the counter with 2 other girls. On the counter, my grandmother installed herself in 1987. When she saw me, her face flashed through surprise, guilt, irritation, then fake cheer. "Hey, you're home early," she yelled, hopping down and spilling her drink on the floor. "Don't worry, we'll clean everything up." "This is 50 people," I said quietly. "You said 5. She shrugged. "It just grew organically. You know how parties go. Come on, it's New Year's. Have a drink." Something in me snapped into place. "No," I said, "the party's over. Everyone needs to leave." She laughed until she saw I was serious. "You're really doing this?" she snapped. "It's not even midnight in some time zones." I looked at her, at the strangers filling my grandmother's house, at the life I'd finally been given. "I don't care what time it is anywhere else," I said. "This is my house." Then, louder. "Everyone out, now." The room went quiet in that strange way only drunken crowds do. Music still blasting, laughter still echoing, but the energy shifting, eyes turning, people realizing the vibe had changed. Megan stared at me like I'd just slapped her. "You're kidding," she said, her voice sharp now. "You're really going to ruin New Year's for everyone?" I didn't answer her. I turned toward the crowd instead. "This party is over," I said again, louder. "You all need to leave, now." A few people laughed, assuming it was a joke. Someone raised their cup and shouted, "Chill, lady." Another guy muttered something about me being uptight. The DJ hesitated, then turned the music down a notch, like he wasn't sure who actually had authority here. Megan stepped in front of me, lowering her voice. "You're embarrassing me," she hissed. "Just let it go. Dad will kill you for this." That sentence, "Dad will kill you," did more than anything else could have. Because suddenly it was clear. She wasn't worried about my house, my grandmother, or the damage already done. She was worried about herself, about how she'd look, about whether she'd get in trouble. And she fully expected me to sacrifice myself to protect her, like always. "No," I said. "I'm done letting things go." Her eyes flashed with something ugly. "You've always hated me," she snapped. "You've been jealous since we were kids." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I walked past her and started opening the front door wider. "Party's over," I called out. "Please leave." What followed was one of the most humiliating hours of my life. Getting 50-plus drunk 20-somethings to leave a party they didn't want to end was like herding feral cats, if the cats were belligerent and had zero respect for boundaries. People argued. People complained. People called me names I hadn't heard since middle school. "You must be fun at parties." "Relax, it's not that deep." "Your sister said it was cool." Megan disappeared halfway through, slipped out the back with a group of friends, abandoning me to clean up the social mess she'd created. By 2 a.m., the house was finally empty. The silence afterward was deafening. I stood alone in the middle of the living room, chest tight, heart racing, surrounded by evidence that my trust had been treated like a joke. That's when I saw the damage. Not just the mess, the real damage. I didn't sleep at all that night. As the sky began to lighten, I walked through the house with my phone in my hand, documenting everything. My hands were shaking so badly I had to steady them against the wall. The living room. A burn mark on the hardwood floor where someone had dropped a cigarette, or maybe a joint. Red wine soaked into my grandmother's cream-colored couch, the one she'd reupholstered herself 5 years ago because she loved it so much. 3 picture frames smashed on the floor. One of them held my grandparents' wedding photo. The glass was shattered. The photograph itself was torn. The kitchen. Cabinet doors hanging crooked from their hinges. A crack in the granite countertop that definitely hadn't been there before. The refrigerator handle loose. Grease splattered across the stovetop and backsplash like someone had tried and failed to cook. Half my dishes were gone. The bathroom. A cracked toilet seat. Vomit stains on the bath mat. Straight into the trash. No hesitation. Something crude scrawled on the mirror in what I desperately hoped was lipstick. The spare bedroom, the one I'd explicitly said was off limits. The lock was broken. Cups everywhere. The bed disturbed. Something spilled into the carpet that would definitely need professional cleaning. My bedroom door bore marks where someone had tried to force it open. The frame was splintered. Outside, the backyard was worse. Trampled flower beds. Cigarette butts everywhere. My grandmother's garden gnome, 20 years old, shattered. The bird bath cracked down the middle, tire tracks carved into the lawn, and the rose bushes, branches snapped, blooms crushed under careless feet. I felt sick. By morning, conservative repair estimates came in at around $5,000. The couch alone, $800 to $1,000. Hardwood repair, $500 to $7. Professional carpet cleaning, $300. Countertop repair, up to $2,000. Landscaping, fixtures, replacements. It added up fast. At 8 o'clock a.m., I called my father. I stayed calm. I explained what happened, the damage, the costs, and that Megan had violated every condition we agreed on. I expect Megan to pay for the repairs, I said. There was a pause. Then he sighed. Lucy, it was just a party. Young people deserve to have fun. My vision went red. She said 5 people. There were over 50. Well, you know how parties go. People invite people. Maybe you should have been more clear. I was crystal clear. You're being dramatic, he said. You're probably just exhausted. I sent him the photos, all 63 of them. A minute later, he replied, some of that looks like normal wear and tear. Normal. Wear. And tear. A burn mark, a cracked countertop, broken wedding photos. When I pointed out Megan didn't have money for repairs, he shrugged verbally. Then it's unrealistic to expect her to pay. If she doesn't have money, I said, she shouldn't have hosted a party with a DJ. He accused me of being jealous, of needing to be the bigger person. I hung up. First time in my life. Dorothy came over later with cookies and sympathy, and one more bombshell. She'd called the non-emergency police line twice during the party. 2 noise complaints were now on record. For my address. That's when something inside me shifted. This wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal. I didn't sleep the next night either. By the time the sun came up on January 1st, exhaustion had wrapped around my thoughts like fog. I tried to clean, wipe counters, collect cups, open windows, but every movement felt pointless. No amount of scrubbing was going to erase what had happened here. By 4 in the afternoon, my body gave out. I collapsed into bed and slept for 14 straight hours, the kind of sleep that isn't restful so much as necessary for survival. When I woke up on January 2nd, my anger had cooled into something sharper. Focus. I'm a scientist. I don't scream at problems until they go away. I document them. I break them down. I solve them. So that's what I did. The first call I made was to my homeowner's insurance company. I hoped, naively, that maybe this could be handled without dragging my family into anything official. The representative was sympathetic but direct. Some of the damage might be covered, she explained, but I'd be responsible for a $1,000 deductible, and filing a claim could increase my premiums. Worse, because I'd given Megan permission to be in the house, the situation was complicated. Then she said something that made me sit up straighter. You may be able to file and pursue subrogation against the responsible party. Meaning, the insurance company could go after Megan for the money, if I could prove she exceeded my permission and caused the damage. I looked at the folder already open on my laptop. Text messages, 63 photos, repair estimates, a witness next door. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you. By the end of the day, I had everything organized into labeled folders. Screenshots of our agreement, timestamps, contractor quotes, Dorothy's written statement, even the noise complaint records from the police department. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg my dad. I wasn't going to argue with Megan. I wasn't going to scream or cry or plead for basic respect. I was going to handle this like an adult, through the system. I paid $150 for a consultation with a lawyer, not to sue yet, just to understand my options. It was the best money I've ever spent. In our state, he explained, I could take Megan to small claims court for up to $7,500. My damages were well within that limit. I had written evidence of our agreement, proof she violated it, and documentation of the resulting damage. Your case is strong, he said. He also mentioned something I hadn't considered. The noise complaints weren't just a liability for me. They were proof that the party was far beyond what I'd agreed to. Before I left, he asked me a question. Do you want to give her a chance to settle before filing? I thought about Megan dancing on my grandmother's counter. Yes, I said, one chance. That night, Sandra called. She was crying. You're tearing this family apart over scratched floors, she sobbed. Your father is so upset. Megan is devastated. You know she's sensitive. There's over $5,000 in damage to my grandmother's house, I said evenly. I think I'm allowed to be upset. Your grandmother would have wanted you to forgive, Sandra said quickly. She was such a kind woman. Something inside me snapped. My grandmother would never have let Megan through her front door after this, I said. Don't you dare use her memory to guilt me. Sandra hung up. Like stepmother, like daughter. I sent the demand letter on January 3rd via certified mail. I emailed a copy too. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. The agreed terms, what actually happened. An itemized list of damages. A demand for $5,127.43 within 14 days. I stated clearly that failure to pay would result in legal action through small claims court. Megan's response came 4 hours later. Are you seriously sending me legal letters over a party? You're psychotic. Everyone thinks so. Dad is right. You've always been jealous of me. I didn't reply. But what came next, I wasn't prepared for. Megan took it to social media. Friends started sending me screenshots, post after post painting herself as the victim of her crazy stepsister. She left out the damage, the agreement, the noise complaints. According to her version, I was a bitter woman hoarding an inheritance that should have been shared with the family. The comments were brutal. Then my dad called. You need to drop this, he said. You're embarrassing us. She owes me $5,000, I said, and she did this. She doesn't have that kind of money. Then she shouldn't have caused that kind of damage. You've never really been part of this family, he snapped. Your grandmother poisoned you against us. That was the moment something in me went quiet. Then I have nothing left to say, I told him. I'll see Megan in court. I hung up. I called my mother for the first time in 8 months. She listened. She didn't offer money or rescue. She just said, You're doing the right thing, Lucy. That house was her world. She left it to you for a reason. The 14 days passed. Megan didn't pay. On January 17th, I filed my claim. The filing fee was $75. The court date was set for February 12th. The next morning, Sandra left a voicemail. Cold, controlled. You've made your choice. When Megan's life is ruined because of this judgment, I hope it was worth losing your family. Don't contact us again. I saved the voicemail. Not because it hurt, but because it clarified everything. For the first time, I felt lighter. The weeks leading up to the court date passed in a strange, suspended quiet. No calls from my father. No messages from Sandra. Megan kept posting vague, venomous things about fake family and money-obsessed people. But I stopped looking. I muted names, blocked accounts, and poured my energy into preparation. Every night after work, I sat at my dining table with a binder open in front of me, turning chaos into order. Tab 1. Screenshots of the text messages where Megan agreed to the rules. Tab 2. Time-stamped photos of every burn mark, stain, crack, and broken memory. Tab 3. 3 separate repair estimates from licensed contractors. Tab 4. Dorothy's signed statement and copies of the police noise complaint records. Tab 5. Screenshots of Megan's social media posts. My lawyer friends said they might actually help show her attitude toward the situation. Friends asked if I was nervous. Honestly, no. The evidence was overwhelming. What worried me was what came after. Megan had no job, no savings. Even if I won, I might never see the money. But by then, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about refusing to be the person everyone could step on without consequences. February 12th came cold and gray. I arrived at the courthouse an hour early, dressed professionally, binder tucked under my arm. I sat on a hard bench and breathed slowly, grounding myself. Megan arrived 15 minutes late. She wore jeans and a hoodie, eyes red, attitude already simmering. Sandra followed her, lips pressed thin, like she was bracing for an injustice she was certain was coming. They had no binder, no documents, nothing. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and a voice that carried authority without volume. She listened patiently as Megan spoke first, claims that it wasn't that many people, that she didn't personally break anything, that I'd always hated her. Then it was my turn. I presented the texts, the photos, the estimates, Dorothy's statement, the police records. I watched the judge's expression change, subtly, but unmistakably. When Megan was asked if she had any evidence, she crossed her arms and said, "I shouldn't need evidence. She's my sister. Family doesn't sue family." The judge didn't raise her voice. "Family doesn't destroy each other's property either," she said. "Miss." The verdict came quickly. Judgment in my favor for $5,127.43 plus court costs, $5,224.30 total. Megan burst into tears. Sandra started arguing, saying it wasn't fair, that I'd made it sound official on purpose. The judge warned her once, then again. Outside the courtroom, Sandra turned to me, shaking. "I hope you're satisfied," she said. "You've destroyed this family." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. "No," I said quietly. "You and Megan destroyed it. I just held you accountable." I walked away. As expected, Megan couldn't pay. I filed the judgment. I was advised I could garnish future wages when she got a job. The judgment would also affect her credit for years. My father hasn't spoken to me since before the court date. I don't think he ever will again. And strangely, I'm okay with that. The father I needed disappeared a long time ago, maybe the first time he chose keeping the peace over being fair. 3 days after the verdict, I got a message from someone named Brittany. She'd been at the party. She apologized for being there, for not stopping people, for believing Megan's version of events. She even offered to pay to repair the picture frame with my grandparents' wedding photo. I told her it wasn't her responsibility, but she was the only person from that night who showed any remorse. Repairs have started. The hardwood floor is fixed. The countertop is repaired. The couch is being reupholstered by a woman who specializes in vintage furniture restoration. She treats it like the artifact it is. The rose bushes will recover with time. I'm painting the spare room, planting new flowers, turning the house into a home that feels like me, not just something I inherited. Yesterday, Dorothy came over with cookies and a cutting from one of her prize-winning roses. "My grandmother would be proud of you," she said. "It takes strength to stand up for yourself when everyone tells you to back down." I planted the cutting beside the damaged roses this morning. It'll take years to really flourish, but I'm not going anywhere. Neither are the roses.